Welcome to this Sahara 4 exercise. In this exercise, we will use the production window to plot the information that we have imported from the previous exercise. For this, we will open our Sahara project with information that we have been working with. We imported in exercise number 12 the information from production, which included the use of a database for the importation of the data. Now we will use the production window to visualize this information. For that, we will go to View and Productions. Now, as you can see, we have opened the production window, and now we have both the map and the production window occupying the same space. To solve this, we can use our auto configuration tool at the end of the view menu, and here both will occupy the maximum space without superposition. Now we can visualize both the map window and the production window. Um, Now let's review the production window. The production is organized in templates. We can create new templates with this button over here. We can load previous templates that we have saved. We can save the current template that we are working with. Basically, a template is the combination of graph that, for example, I'm plotting two different graphs. That is the default. In the lower side, we have the injectivity, how much water is being injected in barrel per day. Is the average rate of injection of the well. And in the top side, we can see water production and oil production, and both tied to the same date in both graphs. However, we can add more graph if we want to the template. For example, using this button here, add column, I'm going to add a new graph where we can visualize, for example, gas produced. We can use all this button to add graph in different places, and we can have up to 16 graph in total in a template. 4 on the row on 4 columns as well. Then we can select different wells in the map window, and then by clicking on them, we are going to visualize the information of each one. For example, let's select well number 32, but let's say that we have too many wells for here to see which exactly 32. We can use two different tools to find the well quicker. We can use this box here on the top of the well interface of the well window, of the map window, sorry, to check where 32 is, and here we can see that the 32 is in this position here, so we can now click it. Otherwise, we can use, for example, secondary button of the mouse, right click, and use go to object, and here we can write, for example, 32 and use it to select the well as well. So both things are going to do the same, and we are going to select well number 32. In particular, what we can see of this well is it has a quite an interesting history, because we can see that it has first a primary recovery phase up to 1997, where we have pretty much a low water cut in total, because the liquid and the oil are pretty similar. And here we have a phase where the well was an injector, because remember that in this case both the x-axis is date in both graph, and both are linked, so we are seeing the same dates. So here we can use this, right click here and go to date, mouse position, and here we can see that this indicator here is showing us the same date, and we can see that the well was an injector. It was closed for a moment, for a time, and then it was reactivated as a producer. Something relevant that we can observe here is that if our well states and layer states have been calculated properly in the previous steps, the symbol of the object is going to be updated properly as we change using the slider of dates. We can see that the symbol is going to be properly updated as the history of the well progresses. So if I go here, as you can see, we have a producer here. First is undefined because it wasn't yet in this date previous to the first date of production. It's not defined if the well is either a producer or injector, so now it's undefined. Then we have a producer here. We can see that it's open in the layer selected. Now it converts to an injector because it's now injecting water. I'm going to change this color of to differentiate it from I'm going to use black here to denote the liquid instead of blue. And now I'm going to give more details about this section here, but for now I'm going to use black to differentiate from water injected here. So now we see that going in this state we are in the as an injector we see that the state has been properly updated, and now we see that the well is now a producer properly and it's been updated to producer, and we can see that for the rest of its life the well is considered a producer. So the our status has been properly updated, and we can see that it evolves with the life of the well. First producer, then injector, then producer on the map side as well. So all this information is interacting to allow us to see the state according to the date, and it makes sense with the production data that we have loaded. Now that we have seen how to use the data slider to modify the current date of analysis, we are going to move on with the configuration tab here on the left. Here we have different options. This tab, the configuration tab, can be opened with this window, and the configuration tab is going to have like a very similar structure to the previous ones in a tree shape that we had reviewed before. We are going to have two different graphs. Each one is going to have its title. Here we have general options of the window. For example, I can select, for example, if I want to use different selection in each chart. Let's say that I want to see the injection of the well D32 on the bottom, but I want to check the production of the nearby wells. So I can select it like this, and as you can see, because I changed the option here from single to by chart, now I can check different production data with different objects selected than the one, let's unselect here D32, than the one that is on the bottom. It's important to remind here that the graph that is selected is going to have is going to be is going to have this greenish light blue contour on it. So in this case, the graph that is going to show oil versus liquid is going to be selected, and now the one that is showing the injection is going to be selected. So as we can see that even changing the selection is going to show us different wells selected on the map as well. So in the top one we are selecting all the producers associated with D32, and in the one on the bottom we are selecting D32. Um, then we can see that when we select the graph, we here for example we can set if we want references and which color we want for the date bar. So for example we have red here to show the date. um, then something relevant as well is that if we select the graph on the top, for example, now or the one in the bottom, now is going to be selected as well here. So as this has a tree structure, you can think of the base of the tree as the general tab here, and then each graph is going to have its own branch. So now we have the branch belonging to the graph on the top and the one belonging to the graph on the bottom, with the title of each one describing where the branches start. So we can see that we can open both if we want. So we open here and we open this one as well. So now by pressing on the name of the branch we can do other things. For example, changing the name. So we can call this one production over time, for example, and we can change the name of this one as well and call it injection over time. And now we can see that the title has been updated both here and both in the plot itself, but also on the left side, on the tab on the left side. Now each branch is called properly the name that we define on this text box here. Now there are more things that we can define. For example, by clicking on the over here, for let's do an example with several injectors. Let's select these two injectors. We can now see that both graphs are doing the sum of the injections, so we have both injections together. but maybe we want to see the injection of each well separately. So in this case, we are going to use the option overlay here in the general sub option. Here, use overlay to see two different injections. But this is not very useful because they are using both the same color, so we can use the color here to change um, which color each curve is going to have. So in this case, we are going to use random colors to represent each injection. So that will be the use of the overlay option. There are more formats that we can use that might be useful for different things. For example, we can see the mean of the values instead of the sum. We can see the values stack or normalize. So we have plenty of options to decide the format of what we are going to plot. In this case, let's keep it with sum for now. And here, for example, there are more options we can work with, but let's just do something quick here. For example, we can modify the x-axis instead of showing us the date of where the injection started. We can see it as t0, and here we can see that the first month of the injection is going to be 0, and then is going to be, I don't know, in this case the T0 is going to be the date where the well starts producing, and that's why this phase injection, as the well was converted later on its life, is going to be 62. That will be the month in the life of the well where it was converted to injector. So we are going to see 62 as the start, and then we will keep adding more months. So we can define this. For example, the subtype of the T0 monthly, it can be a start of injection, and in this case the first month of injection is going to be 1. In this case it was set to the start of production, so it was 62, the first data of T0. And then we can use other options as well. Let's go back to date. We can also plot, instead of date, variables. Maybe we want to plot, for example, the typical curve of secondary recovery, MP versus water cut. We can do it using this option here in variable to define the x-axis, and then look for the variable in the y-axis as well, using our variable selector that we used previously, where we can use this tree structure to go to the information that we need. As we add more variables in the y-axis, we can hide them or show them by using these checkboxes here. For example, by clicking here, we can hide the oil production and just check on the liquid production of the pattern around D32. And here we can, for example, hide or show the liquid as well. Here, for example, as we have synchronized the x-axis of both, we are showing the same date on the bar here. We can see, for example, that when injection started here, we saw a huge response on the wells nearby the injector here. So we can see that it was a clear secondary recovery profile when the injection started. Then after the injection stopped, maybe other injectors help to maintain this profile over time. Another important option to have in mind is that we can asynchronize the x-axis and allow each graph to have its own. Right now, if I zoom it here, for example, you can see that both of them share the same x-axis. It's going to be shared between both graphs. So each time I zoom in or I zoom out, we are going to see the same dates in the x-axis. But by going to general in the production window, and selecting this checkbox here, each one now is going to have a different time. Each one is going to see different dates. We are going to synchronize it again, and now let's check what we can do with the options of the axis. Here, for example, we can, if we zoom here and we double click here, let's double click on the date first. We are going to see the entirety of the life of the project, and we can see how the wells that I have selected here impact on the total life of the project, the total duration of it. Then, for example, if I can do the same here. I can modify an axis. If the mouse if I hover the mouse over here, for example, and you can see that the shape of the cursor is going to be modified to indicate that now I'm modifying the y-axis. And if I move it here, the value that is going to be considered in the logarithmic scale is always going to be a base 10 value, for example 10, 100, 1000. So in this case I'm going to plot up to 1000. And here if I double click on this y-axis, I'm going to have again all the best fit with all the possible data that will be up to 10,000 for the logarithmic scale. But let's say, for example, that I want to graph or plot this up to 2000 instead of 10,000 or 1000. What you can do there is pressing shift, and with the shift key press, adjusting to the value that you want. Let's say for example 2000 over here, and then um, uh, drop it. And now you can see that I have adjusted it to 2000, which is ignoring the rounding that normally you will do in a y-axis on logarithmic scale. Um, Another option to modify the axis is, instead of using the mouse in the axis in the middle of the axis, going to the extremes. And now you can see that I'm going to have different icon here. This is indicating that now I'm going to modify the extreme of the axis. This is just, for example, like this or like this. We are just going to move the minimum, in this case the minimum date, or if I go here the maximum date is going to be modified as I drag it here like this. Then another consideration is that if you zoom out or zoom in, instead of doing in the graph like I'm doing here, you can do it on the axis as well when the mouse has this white arrow shape. And I'm just going to zoom in the y-axis, not in the x-axis. Same can be done here. Well, here I'm just zooming in the x-axis instead of both. Another option available is I can draw a square here by dragging in any place of the graph. I can draw a square like this, and I'm going to see all the data inside the square instead of the best fit to all the data that I have available for production in this case. Another option to modify the limits of the scale is, for example, let's say I zoom here. I zoom it like this, and now I modify the group selection that I did by holding shift. I'm going to just unselect this well, and now you can see that the scale has been modified to accommodate to all the available information in the group. Now I can add the well again, but with the shift, by holding shift. You can do multiple selections by holding shift and selecting or unselecting wells. In this case I'm holding shift and I'm unselecting the wells that I used in the previous example. By holding shift and selecting them again, I can add them back to the total production graph that we have here. Something important to consider here is that we are using the sum option. If I go to the title of the graph, production over time, we can see that the format is sum. And in the case of production, there isn't a big issue there, because we are just going to sum all the productions together, and we are going to see the total value in each date of the sum of the production of all these wells that I have selected. If I unselect a well, we are just going to lose that production in that date, and the calculus is quite simple. It's just going to sum everything, but the aggregation function is going to be different in different cases. For example, let's say that we are not plotting here rates, instead we are plotting pressures, and in that case the aggregation function, we can check it. Let's use the variable window here. Let's go to, for example, pressure. In monthly production, let's use water injection pressure, and we can see that the result that we are going to see is not even an arithmetic mean. It's a weighted arithmetic mean. And if we start adding more, for example, let's say that we select several injectors and we plot the water injection pressure, what we are going to see is that we are doing an average that is going to have more weight the more water the well is injecting in each date. So it's not always going to be the sum, even if the format is sum. It's not always going to be the sum of the values. It's going to depend on the variable that I'm plotting and the aggregation function defining the variable window for that variable. Um, Something that we can do as well here is to drag and drop the graph. If I click on the mouse on the mouse wheel and I drag it like this, um, trying to there it is. If I drag the graph with the mouse wheel and I move it to change position with the other, I can, for example, change the position in the template, having the injection on top and the production on the bottom, opposite of how it was some minutes before. So let's go back to normal. And here there are several options that we have available. For example, if we want to add more objects, more wells, we can use this option here to add more wells. Here we have the well selector where we can write the name of the well that we want to add. Let's say, for example, the 62, for example, and we can add it there. In this case, we are going to just select, with this option we are going to just select the well, and it's going to unselect the previous well that we had. If we want to add all of them, we should add them manually with this tool. However, if we go here and we select them all, let's unselect 62 and let's go back here, we see that by default all the wells are selected, and if I add 62 by looking for it manually here, I can add it like this. We can also use the preserve previous selection to keep the previous wells that I have selected. So now I'm going to add 62 to the rest of the wells selected. Then we can also select wells with a polygon using this tool. In this case, we can select them like this. For example, let's say that I want to select all the wells in the north. This is going to erase the previous selection that I had, so it's going to unselect the ones on the south in this case of the pattern. Here we can switch between different wells using this next button here, but in this case we are going to move over all the different wells in the project. If we want to move just in a selection of wells, for example, let's select all the wells here in this pattern, we have to use this button first. That is going to pin the selection, and it's going to create this visual representation to show us that we are inside this selection, and then we will be able to move using these arrows here, but the selection is just going to move inside the wells that I defined previously. If we want to erase this selection that is preserved, we just click here again, and the circles are going to disappear, and now using this button is again going to select between all the different wells in the project without any distinction to which were selected before. Then we can use this option to unzoom the production window. This is going to show us all available data with the best fit possible. We can also fix the scale with this button. In this case, we won't be able to modify the scale by selecting new wells, so the scale is going to remain the same. Doesn't matter how much wells I keep adding. Probably the production is going to eventually be completely out of scale if I select more and more wells. But as you can see, with this option check, we are not going to update the axis to reflect or to try to fit them to show all the information available. It's just going to be always the same, and it won't update. So, and now if I unclick it and I select any well, or I do a modification in the group selection in any way, now the scale is going to be adapted to show the information, all the possible data with the best fit for the axis, the maximum value available. With this button, we can maximize the graph that is selected. In this case, the one that has the blue greenish contour is production over time, so this one is going to be maximized, and now we only see that one. But if I select injection over time and I maximize it here, we are just going to see this one. Here we have some options to modify the colors. For example, if I want to use a different color for the back of the production window, I can use a different background. For example, let's use light gray like this, and now I have a different color. Let's go back to white. Here we can. This is another option to hide the chart levels, the references. Just another option. It does the same that this one over here. It's the same thing. And here we can call for a report on the information that is being plotted. And this is going to give us a table where we will be able to see how for each different month or day, in the case that we are plotting production data in days, we will be able to see how the data evolves over time. And here we are going to see the different variables. Here it's important to note that the reference that was defined when the variable was being created, or the one that is defined in Sahara with a system variable, is going to be used as an initial for the production, and it's going to include also the information from which scenario this is coming, if it is at the well level or in the or in the layer level. So in this case, the reference is QO, which means rate of oil. The scenario is history, that is why we have an H here. The level is the well level. We are not checking the layer production. We are just seeing the production at the well level. And here the subphase, that in this case is total. So basically all this information is conveying that we are seeing the total well production of the history scenario and we are seeing oil, in this case liquid, but the initials, all the initials other than the O that represents oil in this case, are the same because it's also history, well, total. So this is going to be in the report that we can copy it here with this option of copy to clipboard, and we can, for example, export it to an Excel file using this button, or it's also going to be available if we use the mouse here and we want to see a specific value. See that on the lower side of the graph over here, we are going to see the date of the value that we are checking and the same initials, which means again oil rate of the history scenario at the well level, total subphase, and the units barrels per calendar day, and the total value that is 581 barrels per calendar day. So with this, I think we have covered all the minimum things to consider for the production window. There are more things that we could cover, but as an initial tutorial, I think this covered the minimum information, the most important information that we must consider. So thank you for watching, and I hope you have a good day. Thank you.